Please like, share, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks.
Case. I also want to thank our community and the nation. Over the past 6 weeks, I've been continually reminded of how much our community cares. Locally, public support has been exceptional with kind words, food for investigators, and letters of support. You will never know how much your words of encouragement help us through these trying times. I appreciate each of you and each of your kindness. Agencies and individuals from across the nation have reached out to us to express their support to this department. I'm reminded how our Moscow community, our families, and the nation has been impacted by this daily. Finally, I do want to thank our media partners for the help. You kept this in the news, you helped us with tips, you kept things going, and we truly appreciate that. And you are the product of those 19,000 tips that we received, which is an impressive number. I would like to invite Bill Thompson, the county prosecutor, up at this time.
Good afternoon, folks. My name is Bill Thompson. I'm the Latah County prosecutor. And it's sad to be here, but happy to be here at the same time. As Chief Fry indicated, a criminal complaint was filed yesterday here in Latah County, charging the defendant, Mr. Kohburger, with 4 counts of first-degree murder, in addition to felony burglary, which involves entering the residence with the intent to commit the crime of murder. Mr. Kohburger, and let me preface, there is a pending case now in court, and I and my office and the investigators have to live with the restrictions that our Supreme Court places on pretrial publicity. That said, I promise you we will share with you, through the court process or otherwise, whatever we are allowed to. I just appreciate your patience on that. The factual basis for the charges are summarized in what's called a probable cause affidavit that is on file with the court. According to the rules of the Idaho Supreme Court, that is sealed until Mr. Kohburger is physically back in Latah County and has been served with the Idaho arrest warrant. At that time, we expect that that affidavit will be available to you so you can share the true facts with all of your readers and your watchers and your listeners and all of the people who are interested and really need to know what's going on. So please have patience with us on that. We hope to get that to you as soon as we can. As far as Mr. Kohburger, I can share with you that he is a graduate student at Washington State University and has an apartment residence over at Pullman. He has had an initial appearance in front of a judge in Pennsylvania. He is being held without bond, and the warrant from our magistrate judge here also provides for no bond. We understand that he's scheduled to be back in court in Pennsylvania next Tuesday afternoon, and that a public defender has been appointed for him there. The process at this point is, since he was arrested in another state, he has the opportunity to either waive extradition and return voluntarily to the state of Idaho, or if he prefers not to waive extradition, then we will initiate extradition proceedings through our governor's office. If we do that, it can take a while for him to get here. So again, I'm asking for your patience and understand that's just the way the system works. Once he gets here, he'll have an initial appearance with our magistrate. They'll deal with issues such as making sure competent counsel is representing him, and the case will be scheduled for further hearings. Your primary source of factual information is going to be the court record, because that's what the Supreme Court says we need to refer you to. So please pay attention to what's going on in court and have people there to watch and hear what's being said. As an attorney, myself and my office, we are limited on what we are allowed by the courts to say outside of the courtroom. So please just work with us. Finally, as the chief indicated, this is not the end of this investigation. In fact, this is a new beginning. You all now know the name of the person who has been charged with these offenses. Please get that information out there. please ask the public, anyone who knows about this individual, to come forward, call the tip line, report anything you know about him to help the investigators and eventually our office and the court system understand fully everything there is to know about not only the individual, but what happened and why. Next, I'll introduce Colonel Ked Wells from the Idaho State Police. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon. My name is Kedrick Wills. I serve as the director of the Idaho State Police and certainly want to express our appreciation for your attendance here today. These tragic murders took 4 young, vibrant lives from our community. Nothing we do can bring them back. The only thing that we can do in law enforcement to honor their memories that we know of is to bring this to a successful conclusion. This has been a very difficult time for the families, the university, the community, and the state of Idaho. However, it is also proven that communities come together in tough times. Certainly appreciate the support of the local community and our national audience that has been following us as our investigators have worked through this case. I'm thankful also to you, the media partners, who have helped keep this case in the forefront that generates the tips and we hope will continue to generate information that will help us to a conclusion of this proceeding. I'd like to express our appreciation on behalf of the Idaho State Police to Chief Fry, his leadership, and the entire Moscow Police Department for the way that they handled this from the very beginning. He directed the right people to the right positions that led us to this conclusion today. I've had the utmost confidence in this investigation and in Chief Fry as well as in Mr. Bill Thompson and the Latah County Prosecutor's Office, who've been a great partner throughout this. Nothing has deterred the commitment of the investigators who've worked on this case, regardless of the organization they represent. It's been very trying and very difficult, as you know, that it has been on those investigators as they do the tedious work that they're so good at doing. The partnerships is what's led here as well. The partnerships between Moscow Police Department, I'd like to express our appreciation with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, specifically the Special Agent in charge out of the Salt Lake City Division, Dennis Rice, and also the work that happened in the last 24 hours in Pennsylvania with the arrest with the Pennsylvania State Police and Colonel Evanchik with the Pennsylvania State Police. We appreciate what they've done across the nation to help us as well. As Bill shared, this investigation is far from over. In fact, I appreciate what he shared, that this is not an ending, but rather a new beginning. The difference now is, as he shared, that we are dictated what information we can share by the court process and by laws in our state of Idaho. And so we will share, as he shared, Mr. Thompson is absolutely committed to share everything he can share through the court process. We've got to make sure that we don't get in front of that process. And we really deeply appreciate everybody's support here. The relationships that were forged here and the partnerships that were forged have led to this. And based on that is why we're here today. And we continue to believe that the best way we can honor these 4 lives that have been taken is to make sure that we have a successful outcome here. One of the partnerships that's been forged throughout this is a partnership with the University of Idaho, and on that I'd like to introduce the president of the University of Idaho, Mr. Scott Green.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Scott Green, President of the University of Idaho. Today's news of arrest is a welcome one. It's relief to our university, our community, and our extended Vandal family. The outpouring of support over the past 6 weeks helped sustain us during the most trying time. It provided the strength that helped us navigate the international scrutiny visited on our students and employees. We are truly thankful for the compassion and acts of kindness shown to our community. Kindness is contagious, and it provided the light that reclaimed ground lost to evil and darkness. We first want to acknowledge and thank Governor Little for the early promise of financial support that enabled the university to secure our campus and focus on helping our students and our employees in the wake of the crimes. We also appreciate the Idaho State Police and the highly visible security presence that brought comfort and calm to a community shocked and confused by the senseless crimes. We never lost faith that this case would be solved and are grateful for the hard work of the Moscow Police Department and their law enforcement partners. Vast and committed FBI resources brought important expertise to this complex case. Across the board, dedicated, highly competent personnel worked this case to arrest. This crime has nevertheless left a mark on our university, our community, and our state. While we cannot bring back Maddie, Kaylee, Zaina, and Ethan, we can thoughtfully and purposefully carry their legacy forward in the work that we do. Our students come first, and that was proven each and every day of this investigation. We are committed to safely delivering the college town atmosphere, campus experience, and high-touch quality education for which the University of Idaho is known. With time, we will heal. We will move forward together, and we will remain Vandal strong. With that, I'd like to turn it back over to Chief Fry.
So now we will open the floor to questions. However, I want to remind everyone, as Prosecutor Bill Thompson explained, any factual information regarding the arrest of Kohburger is currently sealed per Idaho law and will not be released until he has appeared in an Idaho court. Please formulate your questions accordingly. I recognize there are a lot of questions, and I will try to answer as many of them as I can.
Is there an evergreen or Argonaut reporter?
Lauren Patterson, Northwest Public Broadcasting, Spokane Public Radio. I realize the records are sealed. I guess I'm not too familiar with how it works, but can you tell us what tip, what lead, what piece of evidence really led you all the way from Idaho to the suspect in Pennsylvania?
As I've said in the past, that's part of our investigation, and we won't be releasing that at this time. We will have those answers. We'll have them as soon as we can make those available to you.
Then a quick follow-up and a two-parter. Is our community safe, or is law enforcement still on the search for other suspects who might be involved in this attack?
What I can tell you is we have an individual in custody who committed these horrible crimes, and I do believe our community is safe, but we still need to be vigilant, right? We still have talked about this in the past. We always need to be aware of our surroundings and make sure that we're aware of what's going on.
Hi, Chief. How soon into the investigation did police and law enforcement begin to spot Mr. Kohburger as a potential suspect? And a follow-up, how many tips, if you can say, were specifically related to Mr. Kohburger?
To the tip part, honestly, I can't answer that question, so I'm not even going to speculate on that. On the other part, that's part of our investigation, and it will come out. I'd like the mic to please come right over here.
Thank you. Dana Griffin with NBC News. Can you confirm that Kohburger asked whether or not anyone else had been arrested when he was in custody?
I cannot confirm that, or I'm not sure of that information, but that would still be a part of our investigation.
Did CODIS initially return any hits on this guy?
That's still part of our investigation, and that will come out. If we could get somebody over here, please.
And then one final question. Is there any message to the online sleuths who slandered and harassed people who they believed were responsible?
There was a lot of speculation going on, and we've always said from the very beginning that we're the official message that comes out, and to pay attention to what we're putting out there to the press.
I'm Nancy Liu with News Nation, and we were over at the house this morning, and you told us that the remediation would begin today. It was suddenly stopped. Can you tell us why?
Yes. The house cleanup has been halted, and that came by a legal request from the court.
Christina Corbin, Fox News. Chief, have you identified a motive?
That is part of the investigation, and that will come out as we continue the investigation. But what we still ask is for people to continually send us things in the tip line. We are still looking for more information. We're still trying to build that picture, just like we have stated all along. We're putting all the pieces together, and that will help.
Chief Veronica Miracle with CNN. Any indication that the suspect knew the victims?
That's part of the investigation as well. It won't be something that will come out at this point in time, but as we continue the investigation and as this case goes to trial, that will be brought forth.
Have you spoken to the families? Can you tell us what they've told you today?
Are you talking the victims' families?
Yes, the victims' families.
Yeah, we have reached out to the victim's family as we always do. We've done that daily, and we've continued to have contact with them.
Hey, Nate Sanford, you mentioned earlier that you're still seeking tips about Bryan and that people should still share whatever information they have. Can you speak at all about what specifically people should be reaching out for, like if they know something?
I would say anything and everything. As we've said all along, we know what tips we're looking for. We will take those tips and we will have professionals look at those and decide which pieces of those we need to use for our case. So we ask that everybody would do that.
Angela Palermo, Idaho Statesman. Your department and other investigators on the case took a lot of flack for keeping information close to your chest. Are you glad that you did that, and were you worried about tipping the suspect off?
I will 100% stand behind the way that we handled this investigation. And this all started from day one with our patrol officers arriving on scene, locking down the scene, us calling in the Idaho State Police, us calling in the FBI, and keeping information that was pertinent to this case very, very tight. We want to have a situation where when this goes to trial, there is no doubt that we've done everything right and we've slowed down and we've continued to slow down. We'll continue to do that.
Hey, Chief. Have you guys found the murder weapon or the Hyundai Elantra?
So we are still looking for all pieces of evidence, but we are still looking for the weapon. And I will say that we have found an Elantra.
Stephanie Becker with CNN. Can you tell what it was like when you got the phone call when the police told you that they had your suspect?
I can tell you, for a lot of law enforcement, it was a fairly sleepless couple of days with as we were leading up to everything that we were doing. But what I can tell you is I have faith in those agencies across the nation. I have faith in our officers. I have faith in the FBI, and they did a great job. But sure, there was some times, even throughout the day, that we were always concerned.
Hi, Chief. Donya back at CBS News. Can you talk a little bit more about the suspect's connection to Pennsylvania?
All I know is that he lives in Pennsylvania.
Chief Guy Tannenbaum from Nonstop Local KHQ in Spokane. More about the Elantra. We saw reports that you mentioned that you recovered an Elantra, but can you specify where that was found? And we know that that was one of the biggest pieces of information you were asking from the public to tip. Were you able to provide an information on whether those tips led to this seizure of an Elantra?
That's still part of the investigation that will come out in the future.
Chief Glenn Mosley, Idaho Public Radio here in Moscow. The additional police presence in town and on campus, semester's coming. Is that going to continue?
You will continue to see state troopers in the area. You know, we're talking to Latah County as well. You will see a presence of us that we're always have up on campus. We have assigned officers to that. So you will continue to see a law enforcement presence. I'm going to take two more questions.
Hi, Chief. Julie Scott, ABC News. Can you tell us if you eventually had a license plate number to the Elantra and how you tracked it to Pullman?
That's still part of the investigation that will come out.
Chief, hi, Matt Lovelace with the Murrow College of Communication. I want to ask about Mr. Kohburger as a graduate student at WSU. Are you aware of if he returned to campus after November 13th? And have you had any communication with departments on the WSU campus about his attendance?
So some of that is going to be followed up as we continue our investigation. We'll be asking some of those questions, but that'll come out in the near future. So what I do want to do is I want to thank you all. You really have been the national voice for us. You've given us the opportunity to get many, many tips, and I do appreciate everything you've done, and we'll continue to look forward to working with you in the future on this. So I'd like to thank you for that, and thank you for your time.
Does the jurisdiction change with the multiple states that this involved? So that'll remain an active crime scene?
So there you have it. That was the conference. And this particular news station in Florida had a FBI profiler, former FBI, on his channel, and they went into some of the details of the case. So you can continue watching and hear that.
Breaking news on WFLA Now. Here is JB Buno.
The face of the suspect in the Idaho student murders. As investigators say, justice will be found and the community safe. A 28-year-old criminology student in Pennsylvania arrested for the quadruple stabbing deaths of 4 University of Idaho students. Good evening or afternoon. Good evening to you now. I think it's afternoon for where most of our audience is joining from. JB Buno here with you live on WFLA Now. We're not going anywhere. We're going to be breaking down what we have learned. And if you're, having a little bit of a moment of an eye roll, it's for good reason, is because investigators and the police chief, that being James Fry, he cannot divulge information that would compromise the ongoing investigation and, of course, the legal due process that is now to follow with the arrest of 28-year-old Bryan Christopher Kohburger, a PhD student at Washington State University studying criminology, had a Master of Arts in Criminal Justice from DeSales University in Pennsylvania in May of 2022. We're going to go over everything that we learned, everything that we didn't, and, of course, the latter is more substantial. Let's bring in my colleague, actually, Jennifer Koffendorfer. That's the correct super there on the right side of your screen. Jennifer Koffendorfer, retired FBI agent, joining us back here on stream. Jennifer, I'm going to go over my takeaways here, but let's start with you, your chief takeaways as we start to get into the hashtag HeyJB and hashtag HeyJennifer questions and comments.
Well, I think the biggest one was the fact that by legal court order, that is why they stopped the cleanup of the crime scene. I find that to be very interesting. I could only think that would have to do with the fact that now that they have a suspect in custody, and as the prosecution continues, or now we're in the prosecution stage, sometimes a court will allow jurors to actually go back to a crime scene and go look at it. And I'm wondering if, since now we're in the court's venue, because we had a affidavit signed, we had a court sign off on it. That's the only thing I could think of as to why this has been court ordered. That really stuck out to me.
You think the crime scene might have been preserved enough to a point where they're halting things and saying, look, there might be more useful to us going forward here. Let's not clean this up and make this, tidy once again, given what has transpired with the arrest of Bryan Kohburger.
Yeah, I mean, this tells me that exactly his words, I think, a legal request by the court. That's the words I wrote down. Legal request by the court. The court is the judge. That's what we mean in our vernacular. And why is the court ordering that, other than if they could foresee that being a request by a defense attorney that he would want, or a prosecutor even. But it seemed odd that there was a legal request by the court. So I'm a little bit curious about that.
I have various notes, as I do during press conferences. I just scribble as many notes as possible, trying to keep up with what we're learning. Let me just first start with what everybody else was saying on YouTube Live. Hello to our YouTube Live, Facebook Live audience, WFLA.com. Hello to those joining us on Twitter as well. Look, there was just overall a look of relief on the face of Police Chief James Fry, and a bit of a smile. Not a ear to ear smile, but a smile enough where you can just see that there is tremendous relief on his face. knowing that he can stand there with confidence and say that the community is safe. Some of the quotes here, justice will be found, and that we have received a clear picture over time, but also saying here in my notes, the work is not done. A couple of notes that I have that I found was particularly interesting. Of course, learning that, I mean, look, we know that the arrest affidavit is going to come out, and that is going to be really what people are looking for, the treasure trove of information as to how they went from, in really what felt like 24 hours, how they went from talking about cleaning up the crime scene in the last PIO update, the last YouTube update that we got from Moscow yesterday, all of a sudden to today, everything forming in really a matter of hours. I mean, talk about a massive turn of events. So the arrest affidavit might paint a picture as to how things went so quickly. And it really makes you wonder if there was one massive break in this case, something massive that led police to, again, Albrightsville, Pennsylvania is the town that is in Monroe County, northeastern PA, not too far away from the tri-state area. Also, as well from my notes, of course, no bond. We know that he's not going to be able to bond out. And then that they're still looking for the weapon. You also find this interesting, Jennifer, and we talked about this before the stream. I admitted I was not comfortable saying that police had found the Elantra. There's a difference between a Elantra and the Elantra. Police found an Elantra. And while immediately people are going to connect the dots and go from A to Z, really, and say that is the one that police have been looking for, look, we don't even really know its color. All we know is that a Elantra was discovered really at the scene of where Bryan Kohburger was taken into custody. So whether or not it is the Elantra, look, that is going to become more clear over time. But not having the murder weapon, but maybe potentially having the vehicle, these are just some of the little nuggets that we were able to learn from this press conference.
Well, they're going to lock all that down. And there's so much more investigation to do right now. First of all, they've got all that locked down. They're getting search warrants for that vehicle, search warrants for his home, search warrants for his parents' home, for friends' homes. They are going to be unmasking every bit of this individual's, Mr. Kohburger's, relationships, his friends, his acquaintances. They're going to dive into all of that. Another clue that was given by the chief. Did you hear him say, when he said 2 days ago, he said something like 2 days ago, it's been hard to sit back. It's been sleepless nights. So that gives us our timeline a little bit, JB, right? When there was the break, and that falls in line with, so that would have been Wednesday. That's when he announced we're going to do the cleanup, on Friday. It's going to start on Friday. So we want you to know there's going to be activity around. That was when we saw his mood and confidence change. And clearly that's when they were honing in and just putting together their arrest plans, getting that probable cause affidavit written up, getting it to a judge, doing all the machinations that are required to make an arrest.
You've been part of countless FBI investigations, Jennifer. We're going to get to your hashtag HeyJB, hashtag HeyJennifer. Following them now, folks. I'm keeping an eye on our YouTube Live, Facebook Live comment section, keeping an eye on Twitter as well. I do a lot of multitasking here when we're live on stream, so I'm keeping a very close eye on your comments, and I see a bunch coming in. Juan, Veronica, Janice, Deborah, Michelle. We're going to get to your questions. We're going to be adding them to the queue if they have hashtag HeyJennifer or hashtag HeyJB. But can you paint the picture, Jennifer, to me? And I can't help but have a bit of a smile on my face, because what it must be like in that room when you get that break. All of a sudden, I mean, for weeks, you're talking about just endless amounts of blood, sweat, and tears being put into this investigation. And you're thinking, my goodness, are we really going to get that break? I mean, I'm sure that there's more hope in some corners of the room than others. And some people might be just trying to will themselves and motivate themselves by saying that we have hope. We are going to get the person responsible for this. But what is it like in the room when you and your team find out, okay, this might be it. This might be the break we've been waiting for. We're on to something here.
Oh, JB, it's, you don't want to say it makes you elated or happy, because you're talking about the murder of 4 innocents. But it's a conclusion of, it's a conclusion of one part of the investigation and the restart of a new. I like how he put that. It is elating to realize your fruits as law enforcement have come together, and that you're able to bring something to this family in terms of closure. there is no more rewarding of a profession, at least just in my opinion, than to be a law enforcement officer and be able to put people like Mr. Kohburger before a judge and before trial, and to bring someone to justice. No greater feeling.
I can only imagine. I've never been in law enforcement, but I've spoken to just so many individuals in the field, and understanding what goes into it, and understanding what the men and women and what our proud law enforcement community members go through behind the scenes to bring justice to cases that we care about, and the cases that don't get as much exposure. Just learning more and more from yourself, from so many others, Jennifer. It's that's why I always have to ask that question: what it is like when you find out that you are on the path to justice. Again, here in the Stream Center, we're going to be getting to your comments and your questions coming in as well. I'll bring up this question. Elise is cool, says #KJB. His nose looks broken. Do you think that the defensive wounds has led to his nose being broken? And I've seen too many of this to really put to ignore this. And I'm always responding to our comments, and I try to keep things rooted in reality here. There is a bit of a curvature to his nose, without question. I think so much has been made, Jennifer, of his eyes and really the stare, and whether or not, I'm going to ask you too, whether or not you think that if that's a big deal, little deal, or no deal as far as the stare that we get from these mugshots, because sometimes a lot is made about that stare, and other times it's not as big of a deal. But in this case, all anyone is talking about is this cold stare that he possesses. And then also too about curvatures and noses, that is not all that uncommon. So there's nothing to state that he had some sort of facial fracture of some kind, or if there are any injuries. But look, if he did have any injuries from that night, from November 13th, that there's a good chance, there's a lengthy amount of time, really almost 7 weeks, for those injuries to heal.
Right. And remember, the exact words used by law enforcement were defensive wounds, or the coroner, both of them. So defensive is like this. This is defensive. Mm-hmm. This is defensive. We didn't hear anything about a struggle, the normal vernacular you would use to describe a fight. These kids were sound asleep in the wee hours of the morning after having had a full day and a full night of activity. They were laying there. And from somebody who's been attacked, when I was conscious, it happens so fast. And they were sound asleep as somebody is coming up with a knife. People keep saying, well, why didn't anybody hear anything? This is so intense. And so, the life was within minutes drawn out of these poor kids. And so back to the eyes though, JB.
Yep.
I will say it's a matter of opinion, and I'll give you my opinion.
Sure.
I can't think of one person who's committed crimes like this that doesn't have empty eyes. I actually pointed it out on Twitter at very early this morning when I saw his shot here, this exact shot. Look at those eyes. They have an emptiness. There's no aliveness, no feeling. It's like staring into, a black marble. That's how I see it. People may say, oh, that really doesn't matter. That isn't proof of anything. We're not talking about proof. We are talking about something that is consistent with these people who commit crimes like this.
Yeah, and look, there's so many factors that could come into play, such as just poor lighting in correctional facilities across the country, or just how sometimes it's a look of surprise because, you're waiting for them to press the shutter button to actually take the photo. You could go, you could, but there have been way too many cases like this where people note how dead somebody can appear in their eyes and how just absent of life they can appear. So there's certainly something to that, because we see that time and time again from people who get arrested for heinous crimes. I brought up Taylor's comment again, hashtag HeyJB or hashtag HeyJennifer, and we can animate your comments on screen. Check out his WSU photo. His nose is curved in that photo as well. So I know that his student photo is making the rounds around the internet. I don't have the rights to that photo at this time. Otherwise, I would display it. But people noting that curvature, that slight curvature, I guess we could call it slight, is still there, and that is, obviously before the date of November 13th. Let's get to some other questions, comments. Jay wants to know, hashtag HeyJB, is there any available connection that we have learned between Bryan and the victims? Hashtag for you as well, Jennifer. And look, that was the big question that was asked. Is there what connection, what evidence, what do investigators have? I wasn't surprised. I'm sure that you weren't surprised, Jennifer, when we kept getting the same blanket response on almost every question. We can't say anything that would compromise an ongoing investigation. But you almost got the feeling that Chief Fry wanted to say more. Like he knows all the details, obviously. He's the gatekeeper for information, as is his colleagues with Moscow, Idaho police. But as far as you could tell, he wanted to give us more, and he can't. Because can you imagine the outrage from Idaho and beyond if he gave out something that compromises the legal process? Look, silence is part of the equation right now. And that's just, it's a tough pill to swallow, because people have been waiting for weeks for this day and for this to actually become reality. But in reality, we knew that we weren't going to get all that much. In fact, the information that we did get and the fact that they took questions, to me, I'm still somewhat surprised. They had several officials come to the podium and speak, take their turn speaking on the case from various different perspectives and various different perspectives and agencies. But the fact they took questions, look, I was surprised and also glad to see it, because of how many people have questions out there.
Well, and remember, JB, and a lot of people want to indict this police chief for his poor communication. He hired, which I thought was brilliant, very early on with some of that $1 million funding, a company to help with how to communicate, how to do your press releases. And I think this is a true mark of probably that company's advice to involve the audience, to involve these reporters. Even if he wasn't going to be able to answer his questions, at least it showed a sign of giving them a platform to ask them, so the audience could hear the question.
My phone is going crazy. And I am very well aware that, and look, this is part of live streaming, that right now there is a massive effort underway by sleuths, and I'll just call them wannabe sleuths, as far as digging into the history of Bryan Kohburger, talking to those who claim to know him or maybe who went to high school with him. There's going to be so much focus now that we have an official name, we have an official arrest, and there's going to be so much prodding into not just his inner circle, but anyone who has any fringe connection to his outer circle. Anyone who has claimed to have a cup of coffee with Bryan Kohburger is going to come forward and speak. And look, we have a process. I want to make this clear as far as the media. And this is what countless news reporters and producers right now for various networks and stations across the country. Now the game goes into an arena where we are, validating the credibility of somebody who claims to be this person's, ex or stepbrother or stepsister or cousin or second cousin twice removed. So I understand that there's so much information, so many claims out there, but this is the hour or hours where everyone has to be extremely careful about what they believe on social media, because anyone is going to come forward and claim that this is, so-and-so person, or he did so-and-so this, or I knew that he was in this so-and-so city on this day and time. Look, there is going to be a process, and the best reporters and the best producers and the best news outlets are going to be going through a very strenuous process to be right rather than be first. And we really want to make that clear that this process is now starting. But just like
Well-
we have learned over the course of this process, Jennifer, you have to be very careful what you read on social media because everyone's just trying to generate a click. Everyone's trying to get a view. Everyone's trying to get a name for themselves and be the person who broke this news or that. And I'm not discrediting anything going out on social media right now, but we have to take it with a grain of salt when it's this new and this much in its infancy.
I totally agree. You know, we need to touch on JB, what happened to Jack D, what happened to Jack S, what happened to the roommates. They were absolutely assaulted, indicted, convicted in social media, even as recently as yesterday. No one could or would believe law enforcement when they said they don't believe they're part of this case. And, you know, many people said, well, that doesn't really mean anything. Nobody really ever wants to seem to take law enforcement at their word, but they're giving their word. Even when they said they didn't have a suspect, I truly believe this broke for them a couple of days ago from all we've seen and all we know now. So I agree with you, JB. We got to be careful because so many things are going to be said that aren't going to have any basis of true fact. Some will have fact, but much will not.
And that is part of the process, and a process that is currently underway. And I'm telling you, oh, hold on a sec. We got a live interview. Let's listen.
The state of Idaho, and he's been arraigned, and those documents begin to become public. A lot of that information will come out.
Are there any indications about the extradition right now? Is he fighting it, or do you expect him back in Idaho soon?
Well, I believe Bill Thompson mentioned that he does have a court date next week. I think we have a holiday, so it could be Tuesday. I'm not for sure, but then we'll know more after that court date on how that's going to proceed.
And can you address whether the victims ever knew or had any interaction with Mr. Kohburger?
So, like Chief Fry said, we're still investigating this. We're still trying to paint that picture and find out more of the answers to the questions that we all have. And so now that we know who this suspect is, that's why we would like the public's help in any information that they have involving this individual can help us potentially answer some of those questions as we continue this investigation.
Can you elaborate on the search for a murder weapon?
Certainly, what I can tell you on the search, okay, we have issued and executed search warrants in the residence that he was located at in Pennsylvania. We have located and are searching a 2015 white Hyundai Elantra. We had search warrants executed at his residence and place of work in Washington State, and those are still active and a part of the investigation.
His workplace is?
I'm sorry?
His workplace?
Correct, his office, I believe.
Okay. And I guess, the scene. How long, because the remediation was stopped this morning.
Correct.
And because the court ordered it. Do we know, why? Is that the court in Pennsylvania or a court here?
I believe that was a local court, and it was just one of those timing things that had worked out where it was very last minute. We got notification that court said we need to halt, and so that's what occurred, and that's why you folks saw that it was just about to begin, and then we had to halt it. So I don't have a timeline on when that remediation may pick back up or how that's going to go. That was fresh to us today.
Where is the 2015 Elantra?
I can't give out that information. I can just say that we did recover it, and we do have a search warrant for that vehicle.
So has it been processed, or?
It's being processed.
It's being processed now. Can you tell me if it's in Idaho?
Again, I can't speak to where it is, but we have recovered it, and we have a search warrant for it. We are executing that and searching that vehicle.
And is it the Elantra that you were searching for?
As the investigation continues, that's part of that puzzle that we're trying to piece together.
Okay. And then what do you want the rest of America to know? I guess, that stress for patients.
Certainly. We just want to stress the fact that we understand that throughout this whole ordeal that people have been seeking answers and wanting information, and that we've been holding our cards close to our chest, as it were. However, it's for a reason, and the reason is, as Chief Fry said, we wanted to protect the case in its entirety, and also potentially not tip off the potential suspect and lose that.
And yet, we heard that you're still seeking information about Bryan Kohburger. Here?
Certainly. Now that we know we have a suspect, we have someone who is facing charges in these crimes, any and all information we can gather on this individual will be helpful to our case.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay. We will unwire you.
Mhm.
Thank you. I appreciate you taking the time.
So I believe that was the sheriff there speaking, and getting some. They are saying that it is the Hyundai Elantra without saying it is the Hyundai Elantra. They're getting right there on the cusp of saying that it is the car without saying that it is the car. That they have the car. It's going to be put through the process of examining it and look and by what we are led to believe right now. It appears to be the car, but we can't say definitively that it is the car. It's part of just what we have to do in the media as far as making sure that we are not misrepresenting information from law enforcement officials. Jennifer, you know better than most as to what I'm talking about. Back here on
Real
stream.
quick, Tricky.
Yeah.
Did you catch that he said, maybe I misunderstood it. I thought he said 2015.
Well, no, I don't think I heard 2015.
Okay, maybe I misunderstood.
Or no, hold on. I'll ask because I was tapping into some various feeds and I was trying to multitask, but I thought I heard well, hold on. I'll ask our audience. Did we hear 2015 or did we hear a different model year? Because of course we have.
Audience is great.
The audience is our audience is on it. That's why I love doing what I do, because we have such a great audience on all of our various social media comment sections. Yeah, no, everyone's saying you're right, Jennifer. 2015. Now, is there a chance that the model year was wrong? That it was because they initially said a 2011 to 2013 Hyundai Elantra.
And this really catches my attention because I was surprised how long it took the FBI, because that was an FBI tasking across the field offices to utilize our analytical resources to do the painstaking look of registrations, go through them one by one, and then contact those individuals and trace down 22,000 Elantras. If they had the wrong year all this time, and we're really looking for a 2015, well, no wonder it took the Bureau a little bit longer than we would have all expected. Yep. So either this individual misspoke or we've got an answer as to why the FBI took so long to track down 22,000, which I would have guessed would have been a much shorter time frame.
So I'm bringing up my computer screen here, a little Google search, if you will, of what a 2015 Hyundai Elantra looks like compared to, let's say, 2011, 2012, 2013. Now, look, they're pretty similar. The body style is extremely, extremely similar. And, we have to just go based on the idea that they don't have great video evidence in their possession that suggests that they know the exact model year. Otherwise, they would have said, this is the model year. The fact they put out a model year range tells us that they have an idea as to what the car looked like. It sounded like they were pretty confident that it's a white Hyundai Elantra, but they were not confident in the model year. So if you look here, this is the 2015. Let's change this to let's go right in the middle. 2012 Hyundai Elantra. And look, it's extraordinarily similar, if not the exact same body type. I'm sure there are micro characteristics of the actual build of the car that make it a little bit different. Wheels, trim, various things that you can point to. But if it is a 2015, you're right. That perhaps was something investigators go, oh my goodness, no wonder we couldn't cross-reference to Bryan Kohburger weeks ago. Where, as we understand it, the arrest transpired earlier today. And so with the suspect being taken into custody, you can see that there's clearly police tape still up around the property. I talked to Bryan Enton earlier. I think that there were a lot of people asking for Bryan to join us on this live stream, and Bryan, of course, always is wanting to join, but he was heading to Pennsylvania. News Nation sent him promptly to Pennsylvania, and as far as when we started our live stream, he was in the air, and so he just arrived at the Kohburger property, and this is what you're looking at here. And snow on the ground. You can see that there's police tape up. I'm sure to Bryan's right, near the front of the property, I'm sure that there is just an army of media. I would imagine that reporters are now breaking it for this location, and they've already been there. Look, I'm sure that many have been there for some time, but this is the first video that's coming in that I can show you here on this live stream, showing you the residence where this all transpired, again, a short time ago. So back here with you on live stream. What I'd like to do now is focus in on some of the questions and comments as we wait for.
Still questions about this car that drove everyone crazy. Hopefully we'll get confirmation if this car was in fact the Elantra that they were looking for. And I know that they did find one at his residence, so there was certainly an Elantra involved in the crime. Now the year has come into some question. But I guess we'll get to that as the case unfolds. Stay tuned. I'm going to bring you more about this killer in my next video. Let's keep praying for the victims and their families. This is probably a very happy time in the sense that someone was picked up, but I'm sure that a lot of emotions are running rampant right now. Though these families have been angry, they're probably even more angry now. Things are going to get harder for these victims' families, so keep them in your prayers. Also, continue to look for anyone who might have been involved with the murder of this little dog Buddy. That was a brutal crime as well. Thank you so much for watching.